Well, the number of 401ks with balances over $1 million at Fidelity Investments reaching a whopping new record of 187,400. That's a lot of millionaires, and that's up 41% from a year ago. And it's not just the millionaires. That's an interesting figure. But the average 401k account balance also reached a record high, and that is very important. It's proof that tax cuts are boosting stocks, not just for millionaires, but for the middle class as well. And folks, you know, Larry Kudlow, the president's economic advisor, is always talking about how the real remarkable thing about this economic boom is it's a blue-collar economic boom as well. Maybe 401ks are an example of that.
Isn't it great? No, I mean, I think that, you know, we want so many people in this country, and regardless of party, and, you know, you're a well-known Democrat, so I can say this with you here, and I think, as we were just talking in the commercial break about your fairness, the reality is everyone, regardless of party, should want to see economic success for this country, and you can't dispute that. It is good, and Larry's right. It is the middle class that is benefiting from this. I know a lot of people and a lot of pundits will try and tell you it is only the wealthy, it is only corporations, but the reality is wages are growing up. We'd all like them to go up more, but, you know, Robert Wolf, it's something to be heartened by. We are doing better.
Well, we have the two leads of trickle-down economics, so I'll get my 10 seconds in before I know they want to pound the table.
Yeah, make it quick.
Listen, as everyone knows, I was on Wall Street for 30-plus years. I'm a Reagan Democrat. I love that I started in the 80s. Trickle-down economics from the 80s is not the same today. I have debated Art and Steve for years on this. I'm not as much of a believer. There's no question the tax cuts are working. I'm much more nervous on the fiscal deficits than I think the fiscal hawks are today. And so I'm going to pass the buck to those who literally devised the plan, because this is one where they know much more than me.
Hey, Art, you want the growth first, right? You say we got to grow before you start, you know, budgeting.
Of course, it takes. You can't cut spending when people rely on it, when they're desperate, when they're unemployed. You need to wait until you get the growth and they've got some prosperity, and then you can cut back the entitlement programs and these other programs. And I fully expect Trump to do that in his second term. I mean, he'll cut it down a lot, and it'll be a great process. But right now, we need the economic growth. And, Trish, it's not just wages are up, but also the number of people employed is up. And that's a huge thing. People going from zero wage to a positive wage is a real big plus.
Well, and 401ks are a big part of what makes middle-class Americans nervous. You know, if their 401ks are devastated, a lot of them have to kiss their retirement goodbye.
That's true.
And then you got to look at Arthur. In addition to the number of workers, you have to look at the hours worked as well. You know, because it's such a tight labor market. And when Arthur and I and Larry Kudlow were working for then candidate Trump, we basically said, look, you want to create a tighter labor market with more capital investment to get those wages up, the number of hours worked. And when you take into account all those things, Robert, I'm looking at maybe 4 or 5% increase in take-home pay, plus the tax cut, which was we estimated here it's about $2,000 per family. So all of that is, you know, when you have consumer confidence, David, that hit its 18-year high last week, that's an indication people have money in the pockets. They're feeling good about their financial situation.
Steve, since we work together, I won't totally hit you, okay? But I do have to say, using consumer confidence from 18 years ago, we know what happened the following 6 months.
Well,
after let me finish. After it hit the high of consumer confidence, we had the dot-com bubble. We had the worst market since the 2008 recession. So I was just saying we should not use that as the greatest
So what you're saying, Robert, is we should have low confidence so we can expect a great future? Come on. It's
no one is saying that. Let's be realistic.
And
no one is saying that.
It's different.
I'm just saying
comparing,
making that all of a sudden the thing we all look at. What I will say is, you know, I think, Trish, you were talking about GDP last week. We've seen very good GDP based on government spending. I'm surprised you guys aren't talking about that. $300 billion.
You mentioned 2000. You mentioned 2008. I, for one, I get nervous over things, right? I worry, and sometimes years before I really should be worried. I was worried before 2000 hit. I was worried, gosh, back in like 2004, before 2008 hit. So my point is there were signs at that period in time. What are the signs that you're so worried about, aside from the size of the debt and deficit? But what are the things that you think are so debilitating that would cause us to be looking at another?
Remember, we only have about a half hour for that answer.
One, I don't want to see that happen, and I don't think it's going to happen. Okay, so let me just preface: we all want a strong economy and a strong market. I think in the last numbers I saw, business inventory was really slow. Exports was incredibly slow. Really, GDP was on the tax cut, consumer confidence in government spending. All the other markets around it, manufacturing, exports, business inventory, did not show good signs.
Guys, we got to leave it there.